Hey everyone, this is Chris from HashRelay.net, and today I'll bring you another end-of-day market update. But first, let's break some FUD. Rumors have been floating around that China is about to ban cryptocurrencies, and today it was announced that the People's Bank of China, the PBOC, had their email hacked and a message was sent out regarding this cryptocurrency ban, and it has now come out to be verified that China will not be banning cryptocurrencies in this fashion. And so anything you hear on China banning cryptocurrencies, do take a closer look at. Another bit of FUD is a Binance hack thing. If you go to their Twitter, though, you can see that they've been doing a system upgrade, and their database had some syncing errors. So they're expecting it to take about 10 hours to fully sync the rest of their data. 10 hours from 11 p.m. Eastern Time. And so the FUD around a Binance hack is also fake news. So just a few things to keep in mind. Don't believe everything you hear online, obviously. Do research and look into actual causes and get it from the horse's mouth, if you will. So if we go over to CoinMarketCap, we can see that the global market cap is sitting around $381 billion. Daily trading volumes at $26 billion, and Bitcoin dominance holding that 35% mark. Bitcoin has just gone above the $8,000 mark, and Ethereum's just above that $800 mark. For the most part, the rest of the markets are looking pretty good. Only a few red numbers here. And for the most part, the gains have been slightly less than they were last night or earlier today, but still some positive movement, which is good. If we go over to OnChainFX, we can see that a handful of altcoins have remained under 50% down from all-time high, which is a good sign. That should bring a little bit more stability back into the markets, though the majority of the listings on OnChainFX are still half off or better. So let's go to the charts. Today we see Bitcoin has got a nice green candle. What we'd like for it to see, though, is for the body of this candle to extend past the wick of yesterday's red candle. The shortness of these bars indicates that we probably see some consolidation here, probably sideways to this downtrend line, and then we'll be expecting it to break through that downtrend line for some positive action. Otherwise, it may continue down this fashion in something of a dead cat bounce. Now, the MACD is leveling out pretty well, maybe coming even back up closer to the yellow line. The histogram is showing a slight uptrend, which is positive. One thing I dislike about TradingView is their constant pop-ups. If we take a look at the RSI, we can see that after the initial regaining of this 30 line, we are creeping in an upward fashion, very slowly, and we want to see this come up closer to the center line of 50 here on the RSI before we're in any kind of bullish sentiment. So if we take a look at Ethereum, we can see that their charts look fairly similar for the past few days. We've got a strong green bar and then not so strong red bar with today's bar as green, but again, we want to see the body of this candle extend past yesterday's wick. Here we're going to see a little bit more resistance from this downtrend line. We aren't as close to this uptrend line, so we've got a ways to go before we can break out at any real resistance there. So again, I'll expect it to trade sideways to touch this downtrend line and hopefully break through for some positive movements. The MACD is not closed in like it did on Bitcoin. It looks like there's still quite a bit of digression from the yellow line. The low bars on the histogram are pretty long still, maybe a tiny uptrend, but we'd like to see the prices come back up a little stronger than that. If we look at the RSI, we can see that Ethereum never got to the oversold portion of it, but it still managed to get a nice little bounce back up. If it can touch this 50 again, though, we'll be back in bullish territories, but until then, we're going to need some more confirmation. Moving on to Litecoin, again, nearly the same patterns for candles over the past few days, though Litecoin is going to run into some even stiffer resistance than Bitcoin. They're pretty close to this downtrend line, but that is right on top of an uptrend line, which is going to act as some stiff resistance. I honestly expect it to trade a little sideways to this downtrend line and probably follow it down, given the overall trend of Litecoin over the past. But if it breaks above this downtrend line, then it has a good chance to break above the uptrend line, and from there, it'll be a jump up to $300 before we meet our next resistance. The MACD for Litecoin looks pretty good. The blue bar is almost, or the blue line is almost crossed the yellow line, and a crossover would definitely signal a bullish indicator. We're getting a little bit of a flattening out or even an uptrend off of the histogram, which is going to be a good sign. And the RSI is also flattened out here. Again, we want to see it make a move to the 50 line before we count our bullish eggs, if you will. And so between the MACD and the RSI, Litecoin actually is looking fairly positive, so I will correct that sentiment and say that I am going to expect it to consolidate over to this downtrend line and very likely break above this downtrend line. Now after that, we'll need confirmation that it'll break above this uptrend line, but I think we still have a few days before that happens, unless there's a great spike in the price. NEO, which has performed really strong over this recession or this dip or crash or whatever you'd like to refer to it as. Again, another strong green bar next to yesterday's small red bar. But right now we are running into a lot of resistance from the former all-time high. I can go ahead and make this a little bit more apparent. Do a solid green line right here. And as you can see, it met the all-time high there and came back down. And then it tested this all-time high again at the beginning of the year and couldn't manage to break through, but finally did, though only a few bars closed above the former all-time high. And now we're meeting it again, but we've got some additional resistance with this downtrend line. If we cross over the downtrend line and set a new all-time high, it will be clear skies for NEO. Steemit has actually been performing fairly well over the past few weeks. It's had a bit of a correction from that point and then some volatility, but it didn't lose nearly as much of its gains from the beginning of 2018 as Bitcoin or Ethereum. We can go ahead and draw in some trend lines here. I haven't done so in a while. We can actually do a long-term shallow uptrend line here. And then another more steep uptrend line here. Now the downtrend lines for Steemit are going to be quite a bit steeper. And you can see that here we're dipping down to this uptrend line, and from the pattern I expect it to test this uptrend line and then continue on up to test this downtrend line. So we should see some slightly positive movements in Steem. Here we can see the MACD crossed below the yellow line and is diverging quite a ways. We've got some negative movements, maybe a downtrend in the histogram there. But the RSI is still sitting above 50, so it could very likely bounce off of this 50 line and then come back up, which would benefit the uptrend theory that I've postulated. And a funny thing about Steem is we can go back quite a ways, and you can see that the volatility has been significant for Steem in a number of areas. But this is a deceptive chart, because if we back up just a little further, we can see that it is significantly lower than its all-time highs. And it's trading in this under 100,000 Satoshi mark. So what we'd really like it to see is to break above and meet, get the horizontal line out here. We'd really like it to break this 100,000 Satoshi mark, but as you can see, we've got a long ways to go before then. Still, the MACD is fairly close. It's still below the yellow line for now, and the histogram is showing a negative trend. But I've already gone over this. Komodo's another one I really enjoy. As you can see, its price action has been a little all over the place over the past few months to half a year or so, almost a full year. But at the end of 2017, it had a massive spike up and has followed the pattern of the overall correction with the rest of the market. Oh, didn't want to put down a horizontal there. I want to do a trend line. And we can see that this one is also fairly shallow here. But this next uptrend line is quite steep. Unfortunately, the downtrend line is equally steep. And what we've got going on here is much like we had for Steem. We are quite a ways from this downtrend line, so we've got some strong resistance there. We can see that the short bodies of these candles indicates more than likely some consolidation. I would likely to this uptrend line, where it'll come into this intersection with the downtrend line, and that will be our confirmation. And I've lost all my indicators. There we are. And now I have too many. So we'll go ahead and close that one. So if you look on the MACD here, we can see, again, we came up to test this yellow line and failed. So we're dipping quite a bit further down. We're getting a nice divergence from the yellow line there, even though the histogram looks like it's starting to round out and head into a more positive direction. The RSI is sitting right around the 40 line, and it does have a tiny uptick, so we'd like to see it come up to the 50 line as well. Vertcoin has not been performing all that great for some time now. You can see it had a decent rise back in October and November, but since then it's really flattened out in a more of a downward pattern than we would like to see. A large percentage of this decrease right here was due to the overall market correction, but you can see some big long red bars before that, which is not such a great sign for market sentiment. Here we can do an uptrend line. We can see that it's not as shallow as the Komodo line. But if we take our downtrend line, we can see that it is in fact quite a bit steeper. This one anyway. And here we get sort of the opposite action from yesterday. We've got kind of a long green doji candle here. Doji candle is just where the open and close are nearly the same, so you get sort of a cross or a plus symbol out of it. And those kinds of candlesticks indicate some indecision. So we've got a big green bar, a large green wick on a doji candle, and then a very short red doji candle for today, which is kind of a negative indicator. We could see it dip a bit. We're looking for, again, more consolidation to the downtrend line to be bullish in nature. It'll have to come above this downtrend line, and there are plenty of levels of resistance to break through before it gets any real good price action. So if we look at the MACD, we can see that we got a cross to the positive, which is excellent. There's a tiny positive bar on the histogram. That is itself a bullish feature. And if we bring up the RSI, we can see that we are flattening out after a pretty good jump up. Going to flatten out. We're near that 45 line. We want to get up to the 50 again, but you can see that there are some pretty stiff resistances at the 50. It's met and then failed that a number of times recently. So we're looking for some more positive action in Vertcoin. Quantstamp, one of my personal favorite altcoins, has been doing phenomenally over the past few days. You can see some very strong green bars. And unlike the rest of the altcoins, or the rest of the coins we've looked at today, this middle bar is green here rather than red. And we've got a little bit less in terms of volume for both of these bars than the previous day, but the uptrend on the past 3 days is promising for QuantStamp. When we do a short-term downtrend, and we can see that we aren't too far away from breaking through the uptrend line, or the downtrend line, I'm sorry. And we are a significant distance from the uptrend line. So that is fairly bullish there. The MACD is about to cross over. We'll see if it's about to test the yellow line. We'll see if it crosses over. You can see a significant uptrend in the histogram, which is positive news. Here you can see that QuantStamp has broken above the 50 and angling towards that 60 line. And we want it to get closer to the 70 line for some real strong positive growth, but this is definitely a bullish sign. So I'm looking for QuantStamp to do fairly well over the next few days. And the last one on my list for today are Stellar Lumen. Stellar has been fairly mild, not much action over this corrective period. Still slightly down over the past few weeks, but not a significant fashion. We can take a look at our trend lines and see that we've got a steep uptrend line for Lumen, not so steep downtrend line, and that's some positive news. The past couple of days, however, been a little negative. Probably going to see it come down and touch this uptrend line before coming back to the downtrend line. It may consolidate some until it gets to this intersection here. If we look on the MACD, we can see that we're getting a little bit more of a divergence from this yellow line. We're getting a few longer bars on the histogram, which is slightly bearish. But once it tests this uptrend line, we could see that reverse as well. And these pop-ups. So the RSI just dipped below the 50 line. We'd like to see it come back up above that and closer to the 70 before we give a bullish signal. But it has flattened out, so likely it will consolidate some, maybe to a slight negative, but that would just fall in line with coming to meet this uptrend line. And that'll be the market update for today. If there are any coins that you'd like me to add, any indicators that you'd like me to play around with, let me know in the comments below. If you found this useful, go ahead and hit the like button and share it around with your friends. And subscribe! Click that notification bell so that you're updated when I come back online with a new video. And as always, I'll talk to y'all later.